What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with you, man. Immersionaholic, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 10 of my Carthaginian campaign for the Divided to Power Overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it to episode 10. Now, typically, the 10th episode of all of my Let's Plays is an hour-long special. This specific video though will just be barely just under an hour, just by a few minutes. You will see the reasoning for that at the end of this video. It's basically just the fact that we find the end of this video to be at the perfect place for us to have another probably not our final video, but we only have a few more videos left until this campaign is done. And you guys will see what I mean at the end of this video. I just think it's the absolute perfect spot to end the video, and I didn't want to overdo it just for the sake of hitting that 1 hour mark. Anyway, we have a lot of very interesting stuff going on in this episode, so let's get to it. First off, I want to go over Hamilcar's army. Hamilcar is tasked with leading the invasion of Italy. And he's doing it with his very elite Brutian infantry. These guys are from southwest Italy, the very tippity south of Italy. So they've been with him for a very long time, since he was fighting in Italy. And they're definitely borderline veterans now. He then has some very heavy Lusitani cavalry, some Libyan infantry. He then has some standard Iberian cav, although we'll be replacing that with heavy Gallic cavalry soon. He then has some elephants as well, who he's brought with him all the way from Libya. We then also have some Samnite hired riders or cavalry. These guys have been with him for a very long time as well. The majority of this army are veterans. They have been with Hamilcar since the very first Punic War in which he fought in. We then also have the Italian mercenary swordsmen, in addition to some more Iberian mercenary infantry. And then 3 sets of Iberian Balearic slingers. Not Iberian, just Balearic slingers, sorry. And that's his army. It's a very, very nice army, very cavalry heavy, of course. We do have the elephants, almost too much cav. And you will notice that all of our units in it come from the foreigners population, so that is intentional. At least the majority of our units do. So hopefully he can replace them as he goes along this long journey past Massalia and Narbo. And then once he gets to the outskirts of Massalia, Hamilcar will need to decide if he wants to go along the coastline and attack the Roman settlement of Genua, or does he want to swing around to the north through the Alps and attack Medland itself, which is currently held by the Illyrians, who are one of our biggest enemies, although their forces so far have not been a match for us whatsoever. So he'll have to make a pretty big decision very soon. However, the Romans launch a pretty epic counterattack against us at the start of this episode. I ended the turn right there after showing you guys the path that Hamilcar is taking, and then immediately the 9th Legion of the Roman Republican Army is coming straight at us. You can see here that I actually disabled my reshare just for a second so you guys can see the army composition of the 9th Legion. Very nice Legion overall, has quite a few mercenary and auxiliary style units in its army, which is actually going to be quite hard for us to counter on the island. We don't have any military forces stationed on Corsica or Sardinia. So now that we've lost one of the islands, we do need to try and rush some forces over there. With the Maganid family being in charge of Sicily, they're also going to be in charge of the response to this invasion of Corsica and Sardinia. They will organize their fleet, send them to the northwest side of Sicily at Panormus, and then we will also be sending in an army with them. Initially, I wanted to send our first Maganid army, which is under the leadership of Barracas, but we'll end up swapping that out. You can see the 9th Legion here, just chilling out in the town of Alalia, however you want to pronounce that. But they will march south very soon, so we do need to hurry the hell up and get that going. A very sneaky surprise attack, very effective overall. We do have the Maganid Guard as well, stationed in Syracuse, which we'll need to use in order to try and help that out.
Breaking a man is easy. Breaking his spirit, less so. Even kept in darkness, a man may look to break his bonds, seek revenge.
And in the same turn, we have a massive slave uprising down here outside the city of Garama. It's the capital of our interior possessions, the province of Fazania. Very large army though, it's a full 2020 stack. They are suffering attrition, so if they don't attack us immediately, we might have a chance to hold off against them. But that's our first slave revolt in the entire campaign. We just got too many slaves, and we didn't cater to them. So to try and deal with that, the Hananid family that is stationed in Cyrenaica is going to have to send one of their generals over to Garama. They will recruit some mercenaries and AOR units very, very quickly, try and bolster the garrison that is inside of the walled city. So with this garrison, we should be able to hold off the slave rebellion, but it is really large. It's quite a powerful rebellion. I was really surprised about that. So I have to see what happens with that. I mean, they might go ahead and assault us straight away, or we might be able to starve them out due to their lack of organization. Speaking of organization, in the western Iberia, we have the Third Republican fleet falling back to the south after suffering some attrition in the Adriatic, and the Second Barcid army is marching north. This army is led by General Idabal. It's a pretty low-tier army. It's basically just a lot of Iberian units thrown together with some Numidian cavalry and some Gallic support units here and there. We're going to auto-resolve just a few of the Lusitani scouting forces that were holding out near the river that was blocking their final settlement from ours in the west here. They only have that one city of Brigantium in the far northwest. It's just a unwalled coastal port, so it shouldn't be too hard for us to go ahead and take on. We're just going to auto-resolve these Lusitanian small forces away. They're essentially just little scouting parties that are getting in the way. We will ransom the captives just to get a little bit of extra money. We've got to be more practical as we are having a bit of an issue with our economy at the moment. But General Idabal is making serious progress against the final Lusitani holdouts. Won't be long until we have our final battle against them, hopefully. Meanwhile, back in the east, Xanthippus is marching against the Illyrians. He has liberated essentially all of Greece. The only settlement he hasn't yet liberated is Pella. But we're going to be leaving that alone for now, as it's not really worth it. Instead, we would rather focus on hitting the Illyrian settlements themselves and hitting their heartland. So he's going to begin by initially assaulting the city of Epidamnos on the coastline. Let's do this. Here we are on the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen. Xanthippus lining up with his Spartans. This is a coastal settlement. Unfortunately, the garrison didn't try to sally out against us. It's going to be a pretty short battle, but I did want to show you guys the formation that Xanthippus is attempting here. So the Illyrians are barbarians. They're very prone to doing rush-style tactics. So you can see here we have this kind of backwards C formation going on, a bit of a crescent shape, where we have our slingers behind our hoplites, who are in a very defensive formation. We're going to be sending forward our slingers, and you can see this really long red line. They do have a very large range. These are our Balearic slingers. And so the idea is the Illyrian forces that are hiding inside of the town, we want to anger them and annoy them so much that they end up chasing our Balearic slingers away, and they'll come out and attack us. Hopefully they'll hit the sides of our hoplites as well. Our hoplites will be in a bit of a tough position, however, they are also in a very useful position because we have all of these gaps in our lines. For example, on the far left over here, you see 3 hoplite units that will be ready to receive any Illyrians that charge out. We have 1 single cav unit standing by, and then we have a Scutarii Iberian sword unit as well, very close by, which can help either the left or the center formations. And we then have Xanthippus in the rear, in the center. We then have 2 Iberian sword units on the far right hand side, along with another screen of 3 sets of hoplites. That's our Libyan Phoenician hoplites over there. Then we have our cavalry on the far right hand side as well, which can swing around and get some nice rear charges. So that was the idea anyway. You might want to try that out in your own battles, especially against AI. The idea was to essentially force the enemy to come out and then get some very nice exposed attacks against them. You can see how Balearic slingers are getting into it right here, flinging in their stones into town. They are very accurate, very deadly, so they're going to get quite a few kills, and The main thing about slingers is that they'll deal a lot of hit point damage as well to the enemy here. So even though it takes quite a few barrages to actually get kills, once they do those initial 3 or 4 sets against a single unit, you're gonna start seeing like 20-30 men die per barrage, at least from a concentrated group of Balearic slingers. So we will do some damage. Unfortunately, though, it is not enough. You can see the Illyrians are just holding here in all of their different little choke points. I mean, it's a smart move for them to hold position, even though they are getting hit by our slingers. They're sending forward their weaker units at the front too. You saw me just highlight that unit. You'll also see me highlight the enemy archers. So after wasting a lot of our slingers' ammunition, I realized we had to take out the archers. We did target them for a little while, but then we ran out of ammo. So instead, we're just forgetting about a defensive formation, and instead we're going to charge forward towards the main road into town, where the majority of the Illyrian forces are stationed. We're going to set up that crescent-shaped formation again, but we're going to be doing it at the very entrance to the main street. So the Illyrians will send forward their javelins, as almost all of their units have javelins, so we're going to take some pretty heavy casualties on the Spartans. However, the Illyrians have no general, and thus they're quite useless with their leadership skills. So they're going to leave their left and right flanks exposed. We're going to rush in our hoplites and our cavalry to try and chase down the enemy archers, and then force the entire Illyrian force into essentially a chokehold, where we'll just slowly but steadily literally crush them to death as our Spartans push forward and our allied hoplites help from the rear as well. You see the enemy cavalry is getting involved here, and they're trying to make a little bit of a breakthrough against our forces, but they're charging Spartan hoplites head on. It's not going to go well for them. Here comes some of our Greek allied hoplites down one of the side streets. The Illyrians are now starting to realize that they're being surrounded, and that's friendly cavalry coming in and recharging the Illyrians. That's right, we have our Greek cav allies. They will be getting some very nice kills on their recharges, and they stopped the majority of the enemy archers from causing serious damage. And so now it's just a point of time, a matter of time. We have the enemies surrounded. They have no more skirmishes really. They have like one more unit, and it's almost out of ammo anyway. So at this point, our hoplites were just given orders to slowly but methodically push forward, crush the enemy to death, and hopefully that will give us a pretty easy victory. I mean, there is, the very real threat of suffering heavy casualties. The Illyrians have a lot of troops that are equipped with axes and seekers, which are very good at armor penetration, and thus very ideal for taking on hoplites. However, pretty quickly the Illyrians do begin to realize just how much of a dire situation they're in. Majority of them begin to rout, and then as soon as a large portion do, the rest of the army retreats. Some of them manage to scatter off into the hills, but for all intents and purposes, the Illyrian garrison is wiped out, and the town falls to the liberation of Xanthippus. There is our decisive defeat. You can see our numbers are pretty much even, almost exactly even in fact, just 10 men off. But we only ended up losing just over 100 men, whereas they lost their entire garrison. So despite the enemy having a lot of javelins and archers and whatnot, it wasn't good enough for them. Unfortunately though, the units that took the majority of the casualties for us were Spartans. And losing our Spartans isn't terrible, because we can replenish them due to them being a foreigner population unit or a 4th tier population unit. But still, that is going to slow us down, because we need them to replenish before we can really commit them to a difficult battle at least. But the city of Epidamnos falls. I should say is liberated by Xanthippus and the liberators of Greece. We will sack the settlement, and they will actually go ahead and liberate it. We'll create ourselves a Illyrian ally, because why not? It means that we don't have to manage the territory. We still get money from them, and their armies provide some protection to our borders, although to be honest, it's not really all that great. And we get money by imposing a monopoly on their trade, so we immediately demand trade with them, demand payments from them to allow trade with the rest of our kingdom, or empire at this point really, and they'll go for it because they're extremely thankful that we've allowed them to take power in the area. However, the Romans are not yet done with their counterattacks. Up here in northeastern Sicily, just outside the city of Messana, the Roman 2nd Legion now invades and takes on the 1st Magadine army just at the same battle, in fact, where we just had to defend Sicily. So the Magadines are dug in, they are well prepared. However, the 2nd Roman Legion is tough. This is going to be a harsh battle. We'll begin the battle in very much the same manner as we did at the last time we fought on the very same terrain right here. We're going to be taking position on top of the mountain. We're sending forward our cavalry to screen our army. Hoplites will form up in a single line, and we'll see all that happen here shortly. But this is an army that isn't really well trained, so to see so many Principes by the Romans is quite concerning. And in fact, here we are now just looking at the enemy army, and we can see around 85-90% of their units are heavy sword infantry. So while we do have, you know, the skills with our cavalry and better tactics and whatnot, they may literally just grind us to death with their very well trained heavy infantry. So we're definitely gonna have to try and make some you know, unique moves to try and outdo them. Really use that hammer and anvil strategy hard on the enemy once we can deal with their cav, although they do have skirmishes and quite a few cav units standing by. You can see they are making their way slowly up the mountain, though, much in the same way that the last legion that tried to take us out here did. So they are falling into that trap at least. But I mean, you can see here all of these units I'm highlighting at the beginning here. That is an entire line of just heavy infantry, and that's just the units we can see. We can't even see their entire army just yet. There is cavalry on the far left and the far right hand flanks. We can only see one unit on each side, but on the left hand flank there's actually 2 more units of cav that will appear out of nowhere, so you'll see that. And then we have velites at the front and some slingers as well. So they're going to be doing a lot of damage to our army, as the Magadine army does not have any skirmishes. General Barracas is definitely not the best general that we have in our arsenal. And you can see us moving up here. He's using essentially the same formation and tactics that he did in the last battle. Hoplites in front, swords and spears on the flanks, and some swords in the rear. The one major change, though, is the Iberian sword units that we have. It's a bit of a sword horde kind of style unit. So we're going to be keeping them in reserve on the far left-hand flank away from our formation. And then when the time comes, they're going to swing around and hit the Romans directly from behind. But we're going to try not to get them involved in the early fighting. That will just be purely up to our hoplites, cavalry, and Italian swords and spears that we do have. Or Sicilians, at least. Battle begins with the enemy archers targeting our hoplites, followed closely by their javelinmen. They're charging directly uphill, so that will help us out a little bit. General Barracas, so very brave as he is, leads a charge downhill directly towards the enemy line of skirmishers. This is to disrupt their skirmishing, obviously. If they're getting charged by cavalry, they can't be standing there destroying our front line with their javelins and archers. So that actually buys our hoplites a lot of valuable time and allows them to receive the charge of the Romans without suffering as many projectile hits as they otherwise would. So General Barracas making a really nice move there. Meanwhile, on the right hand flank, the Romans overload their cavalry with 3 units. You can see 2 units are still up here engaged, the third one already pulled away. We do have some Sicilian spearmen here which held them off very nicely, in addition to 2 sets of our own cavalry on the far right hand side. Over here in the center, unfortunately, the enemy skirmishers started targeting our front line again, although they do have their own heavy infantry now engaging with our hoplites. We do have the positioning on them, we do have the steady phalanx formation itself. So that means that regardless of how good these units are, the battle will at least last for a while, at least along the main line. But we're in a very real threat and possibility of the Romans just grinding through our hoplites. So like I said earlier, we're going to have to make some very serious and smart moves. On the far left-hand flank, you can see some of the Brudian infantry combining with our Greeks to try and deal with the Roman allied infantry that are charging up our left-hand flank. Here comes some rear charges as well. Our cavalry are really trying to overpower the enemy cavalry. If we can get them out of the picture early on, then it means that we'll be able to do rear charges with pretty much clear impunity. There won't be much that they can do about it. It's going to be taking a while though, although while all of the enemy cavalry is tied up and their front line is fully engaged, we're going to be now swinging around our Iberian infantry. They do have some archers which are causing some casualties to our reserve units in the center. But you can see the majority of our line is holding, although there is a small gap because one of our hoplite units went out of formation. So you're going to be seeing that move back into formation here now. It's one of our Libyan Phoenician units, and they'll be backed up by some Brutian swords. The Roman right sees the massive horde of Iberians coming up behind them and absolutely craps their pants. They will begin routing pretty much straight away as soon as the Iberians begin their charge. Our Iberian units also have a javelin each, so that's really helpful as well. Get us some free kills when necessary. But yeah, the Romans on our left-hand side are definitely going to begin retreating. Some of the cohorts of the Roman legion do notice that there are Iberians behind them, and so the centurions of those cohorts turn them around and charge them downhill. So their independent leadership is very good, but it's still a little bit too slow. So you can see that big highlighted area is now clear. Our left-hand flank of the army is actually free to go and help out, chase down Roman units that are in the back that you can see there, or go ahead and swing around and outflank the Roman main line. Despite the success of our left-hand flank, the center of the Roman formation continues to grind for our own front line very steadily. They're doing excellent work, although thankfully for us we do have some Brutian infantry that are doing really well at countering them, and the speed in which we manage to outflank the enemy line is really coming in quite heavily in buying our troops a lot more time, so that way we can get our cavalry involved. Although it's taken our cav a very long time to get stuck into the fight. Well, you can see there along that red line that I just put there at the end that they are indeed coming, so the rear charges will begin momentarily. You can see some of the enemy Triarii here trying to grind their way through our hoplites. They get rear charged by our cavalry. Excuse the little graphical glitches there, but I thought that was a really nice shot because it shows that despite the Romans having their excellent discipline and training, the Carthaginian cavalry combined with our infantry holding so well is really going to tip the balance in our favor. And that's basically the way we're going to defeat any Roman army. We just need to be able to hold them off long enough for our elephants or our cavalry to do their thing in the flanks and in the rear. You can see here though some of the Romans are returning from retreating. They actually end up dispersing our cavalry, but then they receive a charge from two of our units of Greek and Italian allies. So our swordsmen will engage with the Principes that came back from routing, but because they are coming back from routing, it's not looking good for them. And shortly after that, the rest of the center of the Roman formation begins to rout en masse. The enemy general is killed, and the entire Roman legion shatters. And they are absolutely chased down to a man, kicked way back out of Sicily, back to Italy, back to Rome. Yet again, the Maganid family saving Carthage's holdings in Sicily. We have a close victory, which is fair enough to describe it like that because we lost almost half of our men. We took heavy casualties with our swordsmen, our Libyan Phoenician hoplites in particular, Syracusan spearmen, some of our cavalry. We took casualties across the board, so it was definitely a hard-fought battle. We're very lucky that the Romans didn't send in another legion as well. They only sent the second legion here, Legio II Equitris. So the first Maganid army took heavy casualties, but thankfully they should have enough time to recover before the Romans can come back and hit us again. There's going to be a lot of battles in this video, unfortunately. Though. I mean, you know, fortunately as well, the battles are great, of course, but it does mean that things will be a little bit slow. However, this is a battle that we cannot miss. The Lusitani are launching a counterattack against the second Barcan army. General Idabal now has a chance to crush the Lusitani once and for all and establish Carthaginian dominance in Iberia. Let's see how well he does. Here we are on the battlefield, everybody. We have a lot of Iberian units in this army, a lot of Balearic units, some Numidian cavalry, and then we have a single unit of elephants as well. A single unit of Gallic infantry, some Gallic cavalry, although our cavalry is pretty depleted by this point due to our auto-resolving. So we'll be keeping some of our cavalry in the rear, although we'll be sending Numidians forward to scout. Yes, you can see them here. A lot of the battles that we'll be doing today and in general require the Numidians to act as scouts, especially since we're using the larger battlefield sub-mod. Really highly recommend you use that yourselves in your own campaigns. It's so much more immersive, so much more fun, and it's so much more practical. Like, it should be normal, in my opinion, to have a massive battle map where you have to like march towards the enemy. That allows you to have a lot more tactics and strategy involved. Unfortunately for the Lusitani, though, they had some of their skirmishes get too close to our scouting parties without any support, so our Numidians are going to chase them down, get some easy kills on a few units. Actually, they're going to wipe them out entirely, so the Numidians definitely proving their worth here, providing very valuable intelligence on the Lusitani whereabouts, but they'll also deal some pretty big damage because javelinmen and skirmishes in general are definitely going to be hard for us to deal with. Although we do have Balearic slingers, but even still, javelin men that are very low tier can get some easy kills for free. You can see our Numidians will be continuing further down the hill to chase down more slingers from the Lusitani, and we can see the horde of their garrison charging out right now. They are still recuperating and positioning their army. They do have reinforcements, so it's going to take them a while before we actually do get into the main proper battle, although thankfully for you guys I get to skip ahead through a lot of that boring stuff. Speaking of skipping ahead, the Lusitani are now about to engage with our front line. Our cavalry has been picking off their skirmishers on their flanks. They didn't have any cavalry of their own to deal with besides their general. So for now, you're just going to see a head-on charge uphill. You'll see a lot of our javelins are coming in, decimating the charge from the Iberians. We'll also begin doing charges downhill, as this army of the Carthaginians is actually composed of a main line of swords, not hoplites or anything like that. So we're quite mobile, and getting the downhill charge will certainly help swing the battle in our favor, although the Lusitani have a lot more swordsmen than us and just a lot more units in general. So we really need every javelin, every slingshot to count, and we also need our more specialized units to really pull ahead. Like these Gauls over here, they have to hold off 3 units of Iberians all at once. Very tall order, not easy to do. You can see we have extra Lusitani units in the rear as well, so they're not even hitting us with their full force that they could be. But again, that's a bit of a failure in leadership on their part. Speaking of leadership, you can see how Balearic slingers are targeting their general, and within just a few volleys, the general is killed off and his entire personal bodyguard is wiped out. So that will certainly make things easier. Without their general, the Lusitani could be very easy prey to rear charges from our elephants, as you can see here, our cavalry, and just about every single thing that we have. They do have the numbers on us, however, with their general gone, the Lusitani morale is going to plummet. And just with a simple recharge here and there, we get a massive shatter of Lusitani units in the center. You'll see us pushing down along that red line. Our left-hand flank is a lot more tied up with some extra Lusitani forces overloading their right-hand side. However, due to our center now giving way and overriding the Lusitani forces, and then the right flank doing well with their elephants, the Lusitani right ends up shattering shortly after, and the entire army routs en masse. And yet again, they will be rode down to a man, at least as much as possible. We won't be able to get all of them. As you can see, there are literally thousands of Lusitani warriors who are running away from us. We'll do our best to catch them, but bottom line is, seems like the Lusitani are goners. We get a heroic victory with around 300 or so casualties. Sounds bad, but overall it wasn't really. It's just some pretty low tier infantry units that took the brunt of the damage there. Ransom the captives, make sure that we don't get any more slaves, because slaves are a problem for us, and we'll still get the most amount of money very quickly. Speaking of slaves, the slave revolt actually has been starving for a few turns at this point, and thus by the time they actually do decide to attack the city of Garama, it's a little bit too late. Our Hanonid general that we sent over there, in addition to the large garrison in the city, is more than enough to just auto-resolve away the slaves. So sorry for that, it's a little bit anticlimactic, but I still really thought the cinematic video was fun for you guys to see. And it does show, though, the underlying problems in Carthaginian society at this point. We do have a lot of slaves, and our infrastructure isn't built for it. Additionally, we also have a lot of pirates because our economy is doing so friggin' well. And this very large marine-based pirate fleet is now attacking one of the most important cities in our empire. Without this city, our economy is going to plummet because it's going to disrupt our grain trade massively in our core province of Africa. If we lose this town, this is going to be big for Carthage. Yet again, here we are with another battle. I know, like I said, we do have a lot of battles in this episode, but all of them are important. I mean, if we lose this battle, the battle for Leptis Magna, our economy is just going to be destroyed. And when we go into the negative in terms of our treasury and income, that means our armies will begin to deplete, and then our enemies will be able to overrun our territory extremely quickly. It'll even deplete our garrisons, so it's not like we could just sit there on negative money for a while. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is. We just need to do what we can to try and hold our position here and keep Carthage alive, because, you know, while it isn't the biggest military force that's invading, they are professionals. They have very excellent marines here. You can see their ships coming all in. So they're going to be having their full force land on the beaches, and then they will advance on the town of Leptis Magna further up the coast. Some beautiful ships make their way onto the beaches. No need for ladders here, boys. They just jump on down. No worries. Or just pretend that they're jumping in the water, and, you know, their armor doesn't gotta, it's not weighing like 30, 40, 50 kilos. Anyway, moving forward, the pirates do begin landing all of their forces, and it looks like there's a few different ways they might attack us. There's around 3 or 4 different streets that they can come through, typically along these red lines here. So you're going to see the Carthaginian garrison is spread out between all of them. Although we're expecting the pirates to attack our center, so that's where our hoplites are. On the left and right hand flank, you'll see things like our garrison of Carthaginian spearmen, which is actually local spearmen, not even Carthaginians themselves, not properly. And then on the right hand side, we have javelinmen, which will be moving to the rear of our formation. And then we also have some local citizens who have volunteered to help defend the town, because they know how important it is to keep this town alive, not just for their own personal benefit and lives in the town, but for the economy overall of Carthage. And so they have been called upon and / volunteered to defend the town. But the pirates are not going to wait for us to move any troops into position. We need to be in position already as they are charging on down. They do have javelins. They also have very large shields and swords. Overall, just very professional troops. It's kind of a little weird that they're actually so well equipped. I mean, they are pirates. You'd think they'd kind of be more ragtag. But for now, I mean, you know, the pirates are what they are. This is in the not beta patch. This is just in DI 1.3, not 1.3.1, which is a new beta that's coming out. I've already released a video on the channel, by the way, if you want to check out what's coming up with that. But apparently pirates have been readdressed to some extent in that update, is what I've been told, so we'll see how that goes. But you can see here, it's, you know, despite our numbers with our garrison, the pirates are definitely making some serious headway into our territory right here, smashing in through our units, getting a lot of kills very quickly. The one thing that we have going for us is that we have positioning on them, so because we're able to force them to go down these very small choke points, our hoplites are actually going to be able to hold for a very, very long amount of time. In fact, that single unit of hoplites that we had at the front of the formation in the middle of the town is going to hold off their entire force down this main street on its own. We do have more close by to back them up, but it's going to be unnecessary in the long run. At least it should be, as long as things continue to go to plan. Speaking of the plan, though, you'll see that we're sending some marines alongside our javelinmen to outflank the pirates who are outflanking us, though, on the south side of the city. So you'll see the javelins coming in to be pretty hectic. Despite the enemy having a lot of armor, javelins don't care about armor. They're just going to go ahead and do serious damage against them anyway. Unfortunately, though, it's like the shields to these units are like magnets or something, so their shields actually catch a lot of the javelins flying towards them. But after a couple volleys, the pirate marines begin taking some serious casualties. And then we also get javelins thrown down the main road as well. So with this outflanking, it really was just a matter of time before our hoplites and militia spearmen crushed the pirates down into basically, you know, Carthaginian stardust, or dare I say Carthaginian salt. And overall the battle goes actually really well for us. There's no point in showing you guys every little bit of the grind through this battle. You can see here we're outflanking them on the south side of the city. They get outflanked, the recharge comes in, and they shatter completely. And our men actually do chase down the majority of the infantry that tried to run away here, so that's going to be really helpful in trying to dissuade the pirates from coming back again at the city of Leptis. But thankfully, like I said, battle goes really well. Our hoplites hold on, our javelinmen expand all their ammunition, so they get a lot of free kills. Our spearmen coming from behind, and then after, you know, just hitting the fast forward button for about 10 minutes, the pirates are wiped out, with only a few of them trying to escape through the town, although they will be killed by the soldiers, if not the soldiers' wives who were watching them fight on. And the pirates will be vanquished. Thankfully, the Carthaginian economy survives another day. And there we have it. A interesting start. I mean, you know, we're towards the second half of this video and it feels like we're only just getting started. A lot of battles came in very quickly. Some pretty big political developments. The Romans are counterattacking. We're having pirates pop up all along the coastline of Africa, although we do get to wipe them out, so that's nice. But then we also see slavery being very unpopular. I know, what a shocker that is. But seriously though, the slaves that we have in the Carthaginian Empire are rising up, and there is the threat that they will rise in other locations as well in our empire. So essentially we need to stop looting cities so much and focusing on ransoming captives or just killing them. We don't want to enslave anyone anymore. Meanwhile, over towards Corsica and Sardinia, we have the Magadid elite house guard being sent to Corralis. Corralis, they'll be recruiting mercenaries, AOR units, and all of that to hopefully recruit an army that can take on the entire 9th Legion here. Although with our fleet stationary in the port, we also have a large garrison in the city as well. So combining all of those three things together, the Romans seem to be too afraid to actually attack the walled city itself and begin a siege. But we are busy in the meantime wiping out the Lusitani once and for all. We did just have that final battle with them. That was essentially their last chance to break out of it, and they couldn't do it, so we're just going to go ahead and auto-resolve them away, and we're going to go ahead and actually keep the city for our own good. We're just going to occupy it. We don't want to loot it and create more slaves, although the money would be nice. But yeah, the Lusitani are destroyed. Finally, round of applause. Massive props to the Barcid family for dealing with this very serious and long-term threat to Carthaginian independence and dominance in the Mediterranean, and even in the Western Mediterranean especially. However, we do see the Gauls have a massive horde right here south of Brigantium. We're not at war with them just yet, but it is very concerning that they are stationed so close to our territory and forces. Back in Greece, Xanthippus is marching against a Odrysian style tribe, or a Thracian tribe I should say, that is a little bit deeper in the Balkan heartlands and whatnot. We do manage to go ahead and take out their settlement on its own without any army nearby. This is the Dardanoi clan or faction. We do go ahead and auto-resolve them. We're going to sack them, but then we're also going to subjugate them. While we subjugate them, that's actually going to make them a client state. Unfortunately though, even though they're a client state, they will still be at war with our allies. It's something I really wish could be addressed in Rome too. I'm not sure if the DEI team could do anything to fix it. I'm pretty sure it's hardwired into the game. But when you force another faction to be your subject, you still don't get to control their politics. So if they're at war with you and your allies, they'll obviously no longer be at war with you, but they'll still be at war with your allies. So there's nothing we can do about that for now. The Dardanoi also hate us, obviously, because we didn't liberate them, we just subjugated them. That's probably going to be a subject that we have for not very long. But, you know, I just wanted to try it and just see what happened. It's been a while since I've subjugated a faction instead of just straight up liberating, but it seems like liberating a faction is pretty much always the best way to guarantee that you'll have an ally, at least for a while. Although they will betray you there too. In the meantime, the Illyrians launched pirate raids against our new Adriatic holdings. Despite their fleets being relatively well trained, they are targeting cities that have garrisons built up that are just enough to push the Illyrians off and keep them at bay. So despite them thinking that they actually had a pretty good chance here, turns out that they don't. We do the auto resolve and we get a easy victory in defense of the city of Apollonia, which is actually very important. We don't want to lose settlements that we've only just taken, especially those in Epirus. Xanthippus did swing back down south towards Pella. Unfortunately, the Dardanoi are not going to be helping us in the fight against the Romans, at least not yet. And there's a massive garrison inside the city of Pella that I didn't realize would reinforce the Romans if we attack them. So Xanthippus will return back to his objective of invading the Illyrian territory. We're going to just leave Pella alone for now. It's not really all that worth it to us anyway. We don't have any permanent holdings in the province of Macedonia. We're instead mostly relying on allies to try and maintain our presence there. So, I mean, we do have the city of Apollonia in the west, but that's it in the province of Macedonia. So, not a big deal. We do send spies ahead of Xanthippus' army looking for the Illyrian forces, and we'll see quite a few up here in northern Italy as we do get in there. But as we make our way up there, we're also going to have to try and figure out what we're going to do about Xanthippus and his army in helping the invasion of Italy. I mean, we do have Pella, we do have the Roman army over here. You saw me just circle for you all. But is it really worth worrying about them? For now, not really. The Roman legionaries in at full strength won't be for a while. And the capital of the Illyrians, the city of Delminium, is open for the taking. So we may as well go ahead and hit it up.
Now come the ravens, beaks agape for your guts.
Betrayal. The faction, the Vitones, which is another faction we actually did client state, ends up rebelling and declaring war on us. This is a Illyrian tribe in the center/south of Iberia. They've been a client state of ours for a very long time, from when the Barcades began their first inroads into the city, into the area of Hispania. Unfortunately, they do launch a surprise attack and take the settlement of Ibora in their extreme cowardice and dishonorable attacks against us. We do have some forces over here in southeastern Hispania, which is the Barcade Elite Household Guard, which is actually led by Hannibal. Not the Hannibal, keep in mind, it's the grandfather of Hannibal, but he'll march to the west. Meanwhile, the second Barcade army led by General Itibar will abandon Brigantium for now and focus on marching south to deal with the Vitones threat, because they can't be tolerated. They're in the center of our Iberian operations. So if anyone's going to revitalize the Iberian struggle against the Carthaginians, it will be them. So they must be crushed immediately, of course. In the meantime, though, Hamilcar has actually made some pretty significant progress in his very long expedition towards Italy. And he's decided to launch his invasion of Italy by going through Genua, but you'll see that towards the end of the episode. Again, we see more attacks occurring against the city of Apollonia, which is just across the Adriatic, directly from Taurus. And so the Romans are going to be attacking us from there. Here they are attacking us with just transport ships. I'm not going to bother showing you guys the battle, but I did have to fight it manually. But thankfully, because all of the infantry was on transport ships, our two very weakly manned naval vessels were enough to wipe them out. And then our land troops were easily able to outnumber the cavalry that they sent against us. So the small little Roman incursion that they sent against us also failed. So thankfully, Apollonia is still under Carthaginian direct control. The Illyrians and Romans fail. Speaking of failing against us, it's now time for Xanthippus to launch a siege on the capital of the Illyrian faction, the Ardiaei. This city is very defendable though. It's very large, has a massive garrison, full 2020 garrison, has walls, has the whole gist. We're going to try to focus on building siege equipment in order to go ahead and take out the city where possible. In addition, the Second Republican Fleet is actually going to sail back towards Corsica and Sardinia, and will begin a blockade of the Roman settlement that they took off us in the beginning of this episode when they launched that initial counterattack. The garrison's pretty small. We probably could take it out. However, the Massalians are showing that they're very interested in the area as well, since they've just landed a massive army up there in Corsica. So that's going to be very concerning, of course. However, in the meantime, we have a massive battle going down between Xanthippus and the massive garrison that is defending the Illyrian capital. If we do this, win this battle, the Illyrians may never recover. Here he is on the battlefield with his massive wall of hoplites, cavalry and light infantry in the right-hand flank here, scouting ahead. This will be the final battle of this episode. We are just facing off against the garrison, so, you know, we should win this battle. However, it's a really, really large horde of Illyrians, and they have very good troops that are good at countering heavily armored units. They also have a couple units of cavalry here, although despite our numbers of cavalry being pretty limited to just a Numidian and Tarentine unit, they are horse skirmishes, so you're going to be seeing us try to lure the enemy cavalry away from their army and pick them off one by one. But you can see the large horde of Illyrians charging towards us already. They move so friggin' quick. That's one of the secret weapons about the Ardiaei. You can see here, they're just running so fast. I would imagine they're faster than any other faction on the map. I mean, I might be wrong, but it just seems like they're so fast when they're running. Their barbarian troops definitely have hit-and-run style tactics, and they have javelins as well. I'm just showing you guys the pathway as well, where our cavalry will be trying to lure the enemy away from, while our main force positions itself on a slight hill. Not really too much of a hill, but it's enough to give us a slight advantage, and we'll take anything we can get. The enemy does have the numbers over us. But thankfully our cavalry is outsmarting the enemy cav. While we do take some casualties, their javelin throwers are amazing. You saw there they hit an incredible shot. We do have better leadership with our cavalry, and so we'll be able to go the enemy cav away from their formation, and we don't even need to get into a melee engagement with those sets of cavalry. So that's going to go quite well for us. The formation for our battle, for our army in this battle is going to be a little bit different, where we have our Spartans on the left and right hand flanks, and in the center we have a combination of our Greek mercenary hoplites and our Libyan Phoenician hoplites. They're going to be taking hopefully the brunt of the enemy charge. Meanwhile, the Spartans will have a bit of an easier time on the flanks, and they'll also be backed up by Scutari swordsmen. We then have 3 sets of Balearic slingers behind them. And then we have another Scutari unit and Xanthippus himself at the rear up here to act as a reserve unit to go ahead wherever it is needed. Here's a nice little zoom in on your boy Xanthippus. I believe he's like in his late 50s now, so good on him. Mad props for being able to continue fighting at that age with such heavy armor. But that's Xanthippus. Some say that he is Hercules sent down to serve Carthage. Who knows for sure? But he is very impressive nonetheless. The Illyrians do have one of their units of cav break off from the cavalry engagement, swing around their left-hand flank and attack our right, which is actually a big problem for us because we don't have any counter except our Balearic slingers. So instead of our slingers targeting his own skirmishers, they're going to have to focus on dealing with his cavalry. And so while it will be effective, we are going to take losses from his skirmishers getting free reign to do what they like. And you can see here that the battle really begins with our Balearic slingers engaging his cav and his javelinmen engaging with our front line. Now, while our men are pretty well armored and they have large shields, they are still going to take some pretty severe losses, unfortunately. But, you know, is what it is. Not a lot we can do. We just have to tank it out for now and try to get our Balearic slingers to do what damage they can. Our Iberian Scutari also have javelins, so they're throwing that at the enemy cavalry, so that's going to help out a little bit. And in fact, combining that with our slingers is enough to scare off some of the enemy cavalry. You can see the enemy army is advancing in kind of a staggered formation along those red arrows. Our cavalry has now finished off the last final remnants of the Illyrian cav, so now they have free reign to go ahead and do rear charges wherever they see fit. So we'll see how they go in the coming battle. However, the Illyrian main line is now looking to engage us across the entire front line. Here you can see how hoplites are keeping them at a very far distance. Just the difference in training and discipline overall is just absolutely staggering. You can literally see just how much better our troops are just in a frontal engagement like this. I mean, we do have some of our men who step out of formation and go and fight in hand-to-hand combat, but even then it's not too much, and they are skilled fighters, so they're going to get kills while they're doing that. However, the one issue with this battle is that the Illyrian skirmishes and some of their spearmen break off from the center fight, and they actually outflank some of our Lusitani swordsmen that we brought to the battle. Also, our cavalry is now getting a little bit depleted, although they are tying up 3 sets of Illyrian units, so 2 for the price of 3 isn't a bad deal at all. We could probably even dumb it down a little bit more if I wanted. However, instead we're going to be sending forward our Spartan hoplites from our left-hand flank to chase down those Illyrian units. Back towards the center, the Illyrians are now getting stuck in a really prolonged engagement against our hoplites. So now it's time for our Lusitani swords to begin outflanking. Our Spartan hoplites are also pushing forward where possible. They have very good stamina, so if any of our hoplite units are going to do a lot of running, it better be them rather than the Greek or Libyan-Phoenician hoplites. You can see large chunks of the Illyrian forces are already retreating right here. Their general is dead and their cavalry has already been wiped out, so they're being outflanked very, very quickly. Our Spartan hoplites are actually doing a pretty good job of outflanking and trying to pin down enemy forces. We also have our Balearic Slingers, who will also be doing their final rounds into the rear of some of the enemy units. But you can see a brutal cavalry charge in the background there, combining that with some of our swordsmen and hoplites charging downhill, chasing away the Illyrian formation. Xanthippus once again proves himself a capable leader of the Carthaginian liberation of Greece, and now the liberation of Illyria. Xanthippus wins the day, decisively wiping out the enemy garrison. There we have it, a decisive victory. As I said, we only lost a couple of hundred men, most of them being, unfortunately, Spartans yet again, though. The Spartans got hit heavily on our flanks by the enemy skirmishes, which is unfortunate, but, you know, is what it is. Xanthippus will then go ahead, auto-resolve the attack on the city of Delminium, and then the Illyrian capital is taken. We are going to go ahead and sack the city. And then after that, we'll actually go ahead and liberate it as well, just so we get an ally in the area. Again, we don't have to take responsibility for trying to hold on to it, and they might actually help us in defeating the Illyrians. So, while it is risky business liberating, typically the AI isn't too great, they can be helpful. Meanwhile, on Sardinia, the Maganid Guard is now completely recruited a full army. The 9th Roman Legion has been kind of stuck here for quite a few turns now, so we're trying to go into an ambush stance to try and ambush them when they do attack our city on the island. And while that is occurring, Hamilcar is now literally inside of Italy. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where I wanted to end the video. Just as Hamilcar begins his attack on the city of Genua, otherwise known as Genoa, ladies and gentlemen, in the next video, I'm hoping we will at least announce the assault on Rome itself. I'm not sure if we'll make it down there, but that is the plan. So ladies and gentlemen, buckle in. This campaign is getting hot. We only have a few more episodes left until I'm going to feel satisfied enough to call it. We'll wipe out Rome, hopefully attack Egypt as well. And if our generals can pull off these amazing victories, then I believe that will be enough to declare that Carthage is the ruler of the ancient world. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.